Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Korg live stream. We're here with the Prologue for a clinic on sound building and checking out some of the sounds on the Prologue, as well as working with the Prologue's multi-engine. We're going to build some sounds. We're going to check out some of the multi-engine oscillators that are available for free on your Korg Prologue, and we're going to check out some of the awesome effects that are available for Prologue 2. If you have any questions, let us know in the chat. And if you have any comments on what songs or sounds you want to hear, let us know about those too. And as always, thanks for joining us. All right, so the Korg Prologue, as you all know, is a analog synthesizer. It's the flagship analog synth in the Korg lineup, and it is kind of a beast. It's got a lot of power under the hood. It's all analog. It's got VCO analog, which is voltage-controlled oscillators, rather than digitally controlled analog oscillators. So you got that real, true, vintage analog sound, but in a modern package with modern reliability, modern effects. It's pretty much a beast. And it is rare in the synth world because not a lot of synths out there these days are VCO analog. They're digitally controlled analog, or maybe they have digital oscillators and analog filters. So Prologue is kind of unique in that respect. And what we've done with Prologue is added a digital multi-engine oscillator. And the multi-engine oscillator is really, really cool because it allows you to bring digital sounds into an analog synthesizer signal path, right? Without compromising on the analogness of Prologue. So you have VCO1 and VCO2, which are your standard oscillators. And we'll move over to the Prologue right here and dive right in. So the first thing that I want to do is scroll. I can play a little bit. And just for reference, this is the Prologue 8, which is an 8-voice synthesizer with 2 VCOs per voice and multi-engine oscillator per voice. But Prologue is also available in a 61 key. This is a 49 key. 61 key Prologue 16. So you have 2 flavors of Prologue. I have kind of a small studio here, so I go with the Prologue 8. The Prologue 16 is a monster. And in addition to this awesome effect section that's on both the Prologue 8 and 16, the Prologue 16 also has an analog compressor, specifically for the low end, so you can rein in your low end on your live stage setup or something. If your front of house guy wants you to kind of rein in your low end, but you don't sacrifice any power. So that's over here on the Prologue 16, but we're working with the Prologue 8 today, and everything that I do will be applicable to Prologue. And even if you have a Minilog XD keys or module, you might get something out of our live stream. So like I said, we're starting from scratch. So I'm going to scroll until I hit init program over here. And you can hear that is just a blank sound, a saw wave. And it's good to start from a saw wave because it's a subtractive synthesizer, right? Analog subtractive synthesis. We start with a complex waveform and then we filter, subtract the harmonic content out of that. If we go with a second oscillator, right, turn that up in the mixer over here. So we have volume levels for each of the 3 oscillators. You can think of those as sound sources, right? And you can see that they're perfectly in tune, right? VCO1 and VCO2, voltage controlled oscillator. That's what we call our oscillators in a VCO analog synth, are perfectly in tune. And we want to detune them a little because we want to get that analog detune. And of course we want to drop the octave because with that huge analog low end. We're already sounding really, really nice and just crispy and analog. And if we subtract some of that harmonic content out, we take some of that high frequency edge off. See the waveforms on the oscilloscope, that's our oscilloscope display, showing us the visual representation of our sound as if we ran it through a real oscilloscope. That's what's in here. And that shows that kind of the edges are rounding off, right? Right, so now we're really, really smooth. Right, so we're subtracting out the high frequency content. That's why it's called a subtractive analog synth. So we have these oscillators over here, VCO1 and VCO2, and they're joined by the multi-engine over here. We'll turn that up in the mixer, and we'll turn VCO1 and 2 down. Let's open our filter all the way, and we start with noise, right? So the multi-engine has 3 modes. By default, it's going to be on noise. So let's say you want to do some filtered noise. You can filter that out. We're on high pass noise. There's low pass noise. So if I throw some huge reverb on that, you can actually do like a filter sweep or like a trance song or something like that. Peaking noise, where you have a peaking filter. And bit crush noise, which is my favorite. Because it sounds like that. It's super cool. Use it for just destroying and distorting your sound. Especially cool if we use the drive switch on the VCF. So if I overdrive that, go to 100% overdrive, right? There's 2 positions, 50 and 100%. And throw on some resonance. It already sounds cool. Like we're barely even... Could use that to score some really cool sound effects for a movie or something like that. It's really about setting a mood. That's what I love about sound design. For movies, TV shows, commercials, whatever, it's not just about musical cues. It's about setting a mood with the sound textures that you can get. So that's the noise section of the multi-engine. And let's initialize our program again. Turn down our analog oscillators in the mixer. Switch to the next mode in the multi-engine, and that is the VPN section. VPN is a way of storing digital waveforms on an analog synthesizer. We start out with our sine, and we can modulate those in a digital way by changing the shape and the ratio. So one really useful thing about the Prologue is that it actually shows you shift commands when you have the shift button pressed. So if I go through them, shift and pitch knob is going to be semitones. Shift and LFO intensity is going to be inverted LFO. Shift and multi-engine shape, of course, is going to be the alternate or ratio. So you can get a lot out of the multi-engine. It's not just one dimension of shape. It's kind of a 2-dimensional plane because you have your secondary function here. And then you have all sorts of values within that section of the ratio setting. So you can get some nice bass out of that. That's that sine wave bass. You could do a sub. And you can do other stuff like, for example, modulate the multi-engine by going into Program Edit and going to Modulation. And we can target the multi-engine shape with the LFO, or we can, and this is fun. Let's see. Let's go with a square wave LFO. Go to Edit Mode, Program, LFO Target Oscillator All, just the multi-engine, okay? And we're going to turn key sync off and voice sync off, right? And we're going to go, we have a square LFO. We're going to turn up our intensity slowly and just listen to what we get. Okay, this is going to be fun. I'm going to actually add in some delay here. And we can change our type of delay by going into edit mode and making sure we're in program edit, right? We can page through these here. Program edit, go to effects, navigate to our delay type, and let's choose let's go through some of the delay types. And one of the cool things about it while we're in the delay section is if we turn our depth all the way up, we feed back into itself. So let's switch to tape, and we can do kind of like a tape delay loop. Clear the buffer there. Let's just... Okay, now we can build on that. And drone. Now let's modify the shape of the multi-engine. We bring in some LFO. Modifying the time gives us behavior similar to a real tape machine. A little bit of fun with looping. So let's give it a reverb now. Let's crank up our time. Let's crank up our depth. So we're kind of wave folding, but we're doing digital wave folding. So you get more harmonic content in a digital sense than you would if you were just wave folding an analog waveform. You can scroll through some of the other signs. And you see that retained the setting for the multi-engine, right? Our shape did not change when we switched multi-engine shapes. So we can kind of audition various multi-engine oscillators without having to find the exact same point in the shape knob that we had on the previous one. Sounds really gnarly if we use the overdrive on the VCF. Throw on some resonance too. Ooh, if I drop the octave, kind of sounds like a didgeridoo. And that's some of the VPN section on the multi-engine. You also have, if I reset again, throw my reverb back on, you also have some different waveforms that don't really occur in an analog synth. So sounds really cool. And if we overdrive them, we get some pretty gnarly basses. So I'm doing a trick here that is called audio rate modulation. I targeted the shape with the LFO. I chose a square wave or pulse wave because it's either high or low. And then I found a cool interval with the intensity knob over here. So let's experiment here. Let's see what happens if we change not the shape here, but the ratio. And we can target things like the cutoff instead. We get a really cool result if we crank up the resonance and audio rate modulate. That's modulating faster than a speed that we hear as a rhythm, and instead modulating as fast as our oscillators over here. And if I bring in some envelope generator modulation over here, switch to a simpler waveform for this. Let's go to VCO1. So we have our envelope generator intensity modulating the cutoff of our sound in addition to our LFO at audio rate. So we're getting a really cool and of course we control the speed of that with the sustain and the decay. And if we bring in some attack, so you can see here that when you do that at audio rate, you're getting a lot more out of the filter, especially when you're cranking the resonance like that. It's all about finding sweet spots, so you might spend some time dialing this in, but the result is really cool. And if we go with some sort of, let's say, a flanger, sounds really, really cool. Let's try one more thing with this sound before we move on to some more sounds in the multi-engine. Let's try the different voice modes. One of them is mono, and voice modes have been around since the Korg mini log, and they allow you to combine the different voices that are available on Prologue, because on the Prologue 8, which I have here, there's 8 voices. So sometimes you don't just want polyphony, you want to use the voices, like, for example, to stack them in mono mode with suboctave. Where in mono mode, bring up the voice mode depth actually brings in a sub-oscillator. Now, if you switch to unison, the voice mode depth will change the detune, because all 8 voices are stacked on top of each other. So let's try that. Sounds absolutely huge. I might even be a little too loud for the stream, probably overdriving it because I'm using the resonance and the drive setting here. So let's go to 50% drive. I like that sound a lot. And now that I've finished making my sound, to write it, it's as simple as pressing write. And I have an empty slot because I know that I started with an initialized program. And I'm just going to press write. And now if I switch to another program, sounds like Mario Kart. And now we're ready to race. There we go. And switch back to 496 because that's where I saved that program. There's my just massive like formant style filter bass. Sounds awesome. Now let's answer some of the questions that we have on the chat. Thank you for joining us. If you're just joining us today, welcome to the Korg stream. We're here with the Korg Prologue analog synthesizer. Let's see, if I point this way, there's my picture of my Prologue. If I wave my hand over here, there we go. Cameras are amazing. Welcome to the stream. Thanks for joining us, everybody. If you have questions, let us know in the comments. It looks like we have a question. Let's see. Oh, Scott Green also did not know about the shift button accessing hidden parameters earlier. Try it on every single multi-engine oscillator because you'll find that every single one has some cool, unexpected ways of modulating the harmonic content in that oscillator, even if they're user oscillators. Like if you pick up an oscillator from one of the awesome SDK using third-party companies or individuals that are creating their own oscillators. You know, some of the ones that come to mind, we got Dirtbox is making some really cool ones, so shout out to them. We have Sine Vibes is another really great organization or individual, I'm not quite sure, creating multi-engine and user effects for the Prologue, so check them out. And if you're interested in finding out more about the multi-engine, I'm actually going to put a link to that in the comments of this stream. So check that out in the comments. Boom, there's the link. It's Korg/product/synth/Prologue/SDK. So if you don't want to type all that, you can just Google or use the link, Google Prologue SDK. And let's check out some more questions from the chat. All right, so I have Michael who's asking, does the OLED display show parameter value when control knobs are turned? So let's turn to our Prologue and let's take a look. This is actually interesting because there's multiple options when it comes to displaying parameter values. So if I go to global edit right now. Just before I do that, let's go to an initialized program and let's change a parameter, right? So right here we have the number of cents, right? We're moving the pitch knob on here. We can actually change this and it'll go by semitones, right? With the shift key enabled, right? Remember our shift functions, if we just hold shift, it'll give us a little cheat sheet of shift functions. And one of them is semitones on the pitch wheel. And you can see that actually comes up. If we move the cutoff, we don't have anything because I believe the setting for the parameter display is not showing that right now. So we can scroll through the global settings over here and you can see all the different options. We have parameter display. This is where your parameter display options are available. So if I go to parameter display and I change that to all, and let's exit out, and then now we're showing the cutoff, right? So now we go to edit mode. Let's change our parameter display settings. We had normal, which is the default out of the box, all, and then, yeah. So those are the two options. Basically, you could display all your parameters. I'm going to leave it on all for now, and let's go through some more of the multi-engine oscillators. So let's go to a initialized sound. This is actually a sound I created before the stream started. It's a slap bass built on a sample, believe it or not. Oh, maybe it's this one. There we go. Little Seinfeld, right? Okay. I will explain how to do that. Don't worry. But first, we want to talk about some more of the VPN oscillators in here. That's that middle section on the multi-engine. So let's turn down our VCOs and turn up our multi-engine and go scroll to the end. That's going to sound huge if we bring in some reverb. So let's throw some reverb on, time up, depth up, and I think this will sound huge with, actually, let's navigate to Program Edit. We can select our reverb type here, and let's try a couple different reverbs. Arena. Late. A little small for this kind of massive sound. Room, a little small for that too. Early reflections, those can be fun. Really nice and crisp. And this is the one that I was looking for, space. Sounds absolutely massive. It's one of my favorite nonlinear reverbs on anything, any piece of gear, not just synths, not just pedals. I love that space verb. There's also a kind of riser shimmer reverb. Sounds really nice too. So, but let's exit out of that and let's go on to the user section in the Prologue's multi-engine. So the multi-engine oscillator is capable of loading custom user oscillators. And right out of the box, there's one oscillator in the multi-engine to get you started, and that is waves, which is a morphing wavetable oscillator. And that sounds like this. Let's first throw some reverb on, crank that up, turn down our VCOs, turn up our multi-engine, bring in some attack and release. Little mod wheel for you. And if we modulate the shape, here's what I want to do. I want to modulate the shape slowly over time with the LFO. So let's pick a triangle wave. Let's go to slow mode, right? This is going to be our non-audio rate modulation. We'll turn the rate on the LFO down to about 1/3. Let's make sure our intensity is low, and let's target the shape of the multi-engine, right? Before I was doing this very slowly, but I can't be modulating that all the time. I need to free up my hands to either play notes or do other parameters on here. So I'm going to use the LFO to do that. So if we play a note, turn it up to kind of illustrate that, but what we want to do is have that running free. So let's go to modulation and unsync those LFOs. Unsync the voices LFOs, right? So with the voice sync turned on, the LFOs for each voice will be synced up. With it off, they're free running. So let's scroll back to key sync, right? Key sync, that's going to do the same for when you press the note, right? But we don't want those to be synced. We want to do some texture. And by changing the shape position on the knob here, we can change the start point from which we're going and modulating with the LFO. Make some nice ambient stuff that way. If we explore some of the other oscillators that I have put into the multi-engine, this is one of Mutable Instruments modules, and Mutable has been so kind as to make their oscillators available open source, and a user, a third-party user, has actually converted that for the ability to use it on the Mini Log XD, the Prologue, the NTS-1. So I have that pulled up here. This is the additive oscillator. And remember, we're oscillating the LFO, at a very slow speed, and that's going to change the shape here. We can do that triangle-wise or square-wise. Let's put some delay on that. That could be fun. And you'll notice that there's a lot of different kind of texture there because the LFOs for each note and each voice are not synced up. You can almost get polyrhythms there, which is really cool. So that's what you can do with unsynced LFOs, and the first of our user oscillators that we're going to be exploring on the Prologue today. So let's switch back and check out the chat. If you're just joining us, welcome to the stream. We're here at Korg. We're checking out the Korg Prologue. It is right over here. I can point to it. And we're talking about some of the multi-engine oscillators, some of the things that you can do with having an analog synthesizer that also has the ability to load digital oscillators on here. So if you have any questions, thank you for joining us. Let us know in the chat. Say hi. It's a beautiful day out there. If you're quarantining, if you're out there checking out the stream, if you're there with your own Prologue following along, let us know. If you have any questions about sounds that you want to hear done on the Prologue, just say so in the chat. And if you have questions about Prologue's functionality or features, we're here as well for those. Let's see. We have Scott, who's been thinking about picking up some of the Dirtbox user engines. So Dirtbox, one of the third parties that is creating user oscillators and user effects for the Prologue, definitely worth checking out. They're doing some really cool work. Some of the other custom effects and multi-engines are being created by folks like Hammond Eggs, spelled Hammond like the organ, Eggs, Sine Vibes. We got Roll Log, and that's actually one that I'll show you folks here on today's stream. We have Edward, E-D-O-U-R-D, Digital, Edward Digital, and they created a really cool synth-wavy oscillator that is available, and you can find all of these. I'm going to actually put the link here in the stream. Let's go to comments, and this link here will take you to some of the awesome user content that's available for the Prologue. We have Center Village and Tim Shoebridge, and that's just a small selection of folks that are featured on the Korg website doing custom content for the multi-engine and the effects section on the Prologue over here. There's tons of users creating cool content. I couldn't even cover all of the users that are creating cool content, and that's what's great about having an open source oscillator and effects section on your synthesizer. So I have a comment saying from Johannes saying, I love the Patch of the Week category on your YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Johannes. That series is one of my favorite things that I get to do with synths for Korg. So I really appreciate all of the kind comments. Keep tuning in. We're always coming out with new Patch of the Week videos. We have Rick, who says, I love my Prologue 16. I use it for vintage synth type sounds in my classic rock band. I love the Tim Shoebridge user oscillators. They are really cool user oscillators. Shouts out to Tim, available for Minilog XD and Prologue. So let's jump back into Prologue. I'll show you some more of these custom oscillators that I have loaded up. I have some more of the oscillators from Mutable Instruments. If I... Let's just save that. 490. All right, we'll remember that. And let's scroll to a blank slot. Now we have a blank sound. It's just a sine wave, right? That's our starting sound. Initialized program, right? Init stands for initialized. So let's turn up our multi-engine and let's switch to user. And we're starting with our waves oscillator. We showed the additive oscillator from Mutable Instruments. Now we have the VA oscillator. And this is a really cool oscillator. VA obviously stands for virtual analog, right? So that's, we can get a triangle. That's where we start out of it. Get a really nice buzzy saw. And let's try and mix that with the other saws, the analog saws on here. I mean, that just sounds really great. That, to my ears, right now on the stream, I can barely tell the difference between that digital saw wave from Mutable Instruments and a real saw wave. And I'm pretty sure those Mutable Instruments oscillators come directly from their Eurorack modules. So shouts out to Mutable and shouts out to the kind folks who created third-party Prologue oscillators out of Mutable's open source code. So let's keep scrolling through these. Oh, and I guess if you keep going with the shape knob, eventually get to a square wave, and then you can change the duty cycle or pulse width of the square wave. One thing I want to try here, this is going to be fun. Let's target the shape with the LFO. Let's go with a triangle wave, and let's go slow mode. Dial that in, and now we have really, really nice pulse width modulation. Speaking of pulse width modulation, shouts out Nick Bat of Sonic State. Come on the stream sometime. And we can have that synced up if we go into edit mode and go modulation key sync off, voice sync off. Get a really nice huge sound. Go unison, and now we have all 8 voices on one. I almost had 4 voices. I was thinking of the Minilog XD, but this is the Prologue 8, which has 8 voices. And let's detune using the voice mode depth knob. In each voice mode, the voice mode depth knob over here has a different role, and if we crank that up, now we have our virtual analog oscillator from Mutable Instruments being pulse width modulated by the LFO in pulse oscillator, and the voice mode depth knob over here is detuning all 8 oscillators stacked on one note against each other. It sounds absolutely massive. Let's see what happens when we change the rate of our LFO. And let's try some chorus. I like to go with a slow but very wide chorus. And last but not least, let's put the final touches on that with some slow, wide delay. What's pitch bend? Nice, very nice. That just sounds absolutely massive, and that's what you can accomplish using the multi-engines user section on here. I'm going to save that because I like that sound so much. I'm going to come back to it later and use it for something. Let's go to another initialized program and turn our VCOs down in the mixer and try another user oscillator that's in here. These are all really cool. These are the mutable instruments modules. And this is an oscillator that I really like that is actually, I believe, available for free. Let's pull up the page over here. And it is a super saw. So this is by Hammond Eggs Music, one of the contributors to the Prologue SDK, and it's actually a super saw. So super saw, very useful for stacking a whole bunch of saws together, and let's kind of see what it can do. So now we have a bunch of saws stacked. Let's turn the shape up, and I guess that's going to detune them. Let's overdrive that using the drive switch over here on the filter. Drop the octave. And of course, you know what we're going to do now. Unison, and let's detune those. Let's even subtract some of that drive because we're overloading the stream here. All right, now what we want to do is give it a little bit of attack and release. And some porta. Huge, just absolutely massive. That is the Super Saw oscillator from Hammond Eggs. HammondEggsMusic.ca. Check them out. That oscillator is actually available for free. You can check out the links that we put in the chat for this stream. So shouts out to Hammond Eggs Music. Thank you for that oscillator. They've got some cool effects too, including a Bucket Brigade style chorus that I really love. I love my Bucket Brigades. So let's check out the comments. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. If you're just hopping on stream, say hi in the comments. And if you have any questions about somebody in the chat, Michael says, this has definitely moved on from the Monotron. Yes, that is, yeah, the Monotron that started it all, small little handheld very easily moddable analog synthesizer, one oscillator, or the Monotron Duo, which had 2 oscillators, but very portable and easy to use. Very cool. Hey, it looks like the creator of Super, otherwise known as hammondeggsmusic.ca, Jason is in the chat with us today. So shouts out, Jason. Thank you for putting your oscillators available for free. If you want to check out more of Jason's oscillators, you can check them out at Hammond Eggs Music. I'm going to put the link in the chat. There we go. Boom. hammondeggsmusic.ca. And he says V2, version 2 of Supersaw oscillator is on the way, and some more fun stuff in the works. So thank you so much to Jason for stopping by, saying hi. What a coincidence. Probably just saw that we were streaming, decided to check it out, and boom, there's your oscillator. Thank you for joining us. If you're just joining us, let us know if you have questions about the Korg Prologue. It's another Wednesday afternoon stream. I'm your host, and we're just checking out the Prologue and checking out the user oscillators and checking out the effects section as well. We have Travis, who just got his Prologue yesterday. Congratulations. You're right. That is great timing. Suggest you follow along creating some sounds with us and check out some of the user oscillators and effects that we mentioned on the stream today. So let's jump back in. If you're just joining us, we have the Prologue 8 right here. 8 voices, 49 keys, awesome analog synth, very easy to use, and we're just doing some sound programming, sound design with the multi-engine. Let's check out what else is available. This is Supersaw by Hammond Eggs Music. I'm going to write that because I like that sound a lot. Rated that sound. That's cool. So let's pull up a initialized program and let's turn our VCOs down, turn our multi-engine up, go to the user section and scroll to, let's see what comes after Super. Shapes. And I believe Shapes is, let's see, who did the Shapes oscillator? This is another user. Oh, here we go. So this is also from Hammond Eggs. Wow. Thank you to Jason for making your oscillators available for free. So this is looks like it has all the shapes that you'd find in an analog oscillator. Let's see, does the shift ratio control? Very nice. And one of the things that I like about this is accurate, right? When we go all the way up to 100% shape, we don't hear anything because our duty cycle for a square wave is 0. So that's accurate. Respect to Jason for programming an accurate pulse wave with pulse width modulation. And one thing I want to show here with the triangle wave, this is how you get kind of like a let's say a Legend of Zelda flute style sound. All right, so let's kind of dial in this LFO with the pitch targeted. Let's filter a little bit of high end out of that. Turn up the volume a little bit. I think I got the speed right on that. Let's give it some reverb and let's go into edit mode and let's choose a smaller reverb plate and turn the time down, the depth down too. And the Legend of Zelda there. But that was the triangle wave back in the day on the on those early 8-bit chips. And let's see, this one is one that I actually created myself. So this is the last oscillator that I'll show you folks today on the stream. We're here with the Korg Prologue. If you're just joining us, checking out some of the multi-engine oscillators that are available. Some of these are available for free, such as the Hammond Eggs oscillators, the mutable instruments, open source multi-engine oscillators for the Prologue, for the NTS1, and for the Minilog XD. If you have questions about Prologue, let us know in the comments. And Jason's saying he has an actual chiptune oscillator, so that's one step ahead of me over here. And got another question in the comments. As somebody who's torn between the 8 and 16 voice version, can you give your personal take on who the different models would be good for? Absolutely, because I have used both a 16 and an 8, and I'm currently with the Prologue 8. That's because I'm in kind of a small room for my studio. So I go with a smaller synth because I can fit more synths into my studio when I have, kind of a small space here. If you're looking for maximum polyphony, get the 16 voice for sure. You have that 61 key range, which is super crucial for doing really just huge range of notes. But it's a trade-off because Prologue 8, it's a little more affordable. They're both very affordable for the feature set that they have, but the 8, 49 keys, a little more compact. If you're touring and you want just an absolute no-holds-barred analog synth, go with the Prologue 16 with 16 voices, 61 keys. And if you're looking for something a little bit more compact or useful for your studio, get the Prologue 8, 49 keys and 8 voices, and that's what I'm using right now. And I see that one of the folks in the comments has mentioned, and this is actually very important, a lot of folks are out there making really cool content for the Prologue, multi-engine and the user effects. And some of those folks are putting their oscillators and effects out there for free. But if you care to donate to them, they're putting a lot of hard work in, and those donations help them continue doing those awesome oscillators and effects. So feel free to be sure to, if you like the oscillators and effects that are done by folks like Jason over at Hammond Eggs, check it and see if they have a link to donate so that they can continue putting those oscillators and effects out there. And somebody else in the comments, Travis mentioned the 16 has the compressor. That's right. So the Prologue 8 over here just has the effect section here, really nice digital stereo effect section. But the Prologue 16, in addition to that digital stereo effect section, has a analog compressor. So that's one of the other things that you get. Very useful for live if you have, a front of house guy who's like, oh my God, man, that synth sounds so awesome. It sounds huge, but your bass is too much. You can use that analog compressor on the Prologue 16 to rein in your lows a little bit. So that's a really useful tool that's available on the Prologue 16, and you can kind of make your decision on which one you want to get based on those various features. Got Michael asking if the stream is going to be recorded and put on YouTube. We will actually leave this stream up on the Facebook page, so if you want to watch it again, check it out right here on Korg Facebook. So last but not least, I want to show a very, very cool way of creating your own oscillators, right? So what I've done here is I've taken roll log, right? Roll log is a site and individual or group that has made their utility for converting a wave file available for free. This is roll log sounds. I put the link in the comments, and what they've actually done is, I'll switch back to this view. What they've actually done is made a utility that converts a wave file, a little tiny snippet. It's only about 16,000 samples, right? Sample in this case not being a recording of sound, but a sample being a one of the many, many, many little tiny bits of audio that make up a recording of sound using pulse code modulation, a way of storing digital sound in digital realm in ones and zeros instead of on like analog tape or a vinyl, for example. So Roll Log has created a utility. You load it up. you drop a wave file in there. Make sure that that wave file is the right format. And I want to make sure that I get this right. That is, let's see. Oh, and they've got a bunch of different oscillators and utilities that are really, really cool. That allow you to do all sorts of stuff. But let's see. I don't want to spend too much time on my web browser here, but they have a utility that allows you to put a wave file in and get a Prologue oscillator out. So thank you to them. And this last one is just a simple slap bass that I created using their utility. Just a tiny snippet of audio of a slap bass. And it's not perfect because you can kind of dial in the exact sample time down to the millisecond. Drive that. So that's a little bit of custom samples that are converted into a Prologue multi-engine oscillator using that utility. So thank you to all the creators that are doing multi-engine oscillators and user effects that are available for Prologue. Some of them are available for free. Some of them are available for a small fee. Remember to support the creators by donating if you feel so inclined. If you like their oscillators and you use them to create music with them, keeps the ecosystem going of content creators. And it looks like that's all the time we have for today. So if you have any questions about Prologue, let us know to answer them on the next stream. And we also have lots of awesome streams coming up. So one of them is keyboardist and just all-around great musician Anthony Williams, friend of mine, who's going to be doing an IG Live tomorrow night at 7 p.m. on our Instagram. That's going to be awesome. We've got streams coming up next week right here on the Korg Facebook. We're doing streams all the time on your favorite dealers page, on the Korg page right here. We're trying to make sure that we reach you and we make you aware of all the different ways that we can make music with these awesome synths. So that's it for the stream today. Thank you for joining us, and we will catch you next time.